Sultan Suleiman's illness had improved somewhat, but the air in Istanbul was heavy, the palace filled with intrigues. The struggle for the throne had already begun, in whispers, in shadows, and Hürrem Sultan knew she needed to prepare her son Selim. When the news reached Manisa Palace, the entire palace rose to its feet.
The Valide Sultan is coming.
Servants rushed through the corridors. Concubines began preparations. Guards lined up. Everyone knew Hürrem Sultan's visit meant change. It always did.
There was an atmosphere of panic in the harem. Different emotions clashed within Nurbanu. Fear, yes, but at the same time, hope. Perhaps this powerful woman would notice her. How should I present myself? Will she like me? Or will she see me as a threat? Standing before the bronze mirror in her room, her chestnut hair fell past her shoulders. Her hazel green eyes, appearing more green in this morning light, looked back at her with uncertainty.
"She's coming today," Layla whispered, entering the room. "They say her caravan was spotted at dawn."
Nurbanu's heart began to race. How should I look?
Simple, Layla advised, but clean, flawless. She sees everything.
Hürrem Sultan arrived in splendor. Her procession flowed through the palace gates like a river of gold. 20 mounted guards in red uniforms, silver-decorated carriages, and in the center, seated on a palanquin covered in emerald green silk, sat the woman who had changed the fate of an empire. When she descended, the entire palace seemed to hold its breath. She was now in her 40s. She had given birth to 6 children: Shehzade Mehmed, Mirima Sultan, Shehzade Abdullah, Shehzade Selim, Shehzade Bayezid, and Shehzade Jihangir. Her body had carried life, had suffered, had birthed princes and sultanas, yet still she radiated. Her kaftan was deep crimson, adorned with gold thread embroidery that caught the sunlight. Her pearl-embellished headdress crowned her famous red-gold hair, still vibrant, still striking. Her fair and luminous skin showed few lines. Her glass-sharp green eyes missed nothing. Perhaps, thought the concubines watching from the windows, she stays young by draining the life from her rivals.
Selim greeted his mother in the grand reception hall. He bowed deeply. "Welcome, mother. Your presence honors Manisa."
Hürrem embraced her son, then stepped back to look at him. Her third son. Where his brothers were harsh, he was gentle. Where they were thoughtless, he was thoughtful. Her favorite, though she would never say so aloud.
"You look tired, my son," she said softly. "Are you sleeping?"
"I sleep enough, mother."
Liar, Hürrem thought, but aloud she only said, "Good. Tomorrow I'll inspect your harem. I want to see the quality of your household."
Selim's jaw tightened slightly. "As you wish, mother."
The next morning, the harem was in chaos.
Every concubine had bathed twice. Every corner had been scrubbed. The air was filled with Hürrem Sultan's favorite rosewater and the tense energy radiating from her presence. When Hürrem Sultan entered, walking ahead of Fatma Ana, the girls stood in a perfect line, heads bowed, hands clasped, breaths shallow.
Hürrem walked slowly along the line. She examined each girl like a jeweler appraising stones. Beautiful, but ordinary. Talented, but dull. Very beautiful, but forgettable.
Then she stopped. In front of Nurbanu, the girl's head was bowed.
But there was something in her posture. This wasn't submission. It was restraint, like a drawn bow.
Hürrem examined her. Chestnut hair with gold auburn tones, not the preferred blonde, but distinctive, memorable. Porcelain-like skin, high cheekbones that spoke of nobility. And when the girl briefly looked up,
Those eyes, hazel green, shifting colors in the light. But more than that, there was something within them, intelligence, hunger, fire.
this one is different, Hürrem thought. There's a spark in this one.
You, Hürrem said, look at me.
Nurbanu raised her head. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Hürrem saw herself, 30 years ago, standing in just such a line, hoping to be noticed.
What is your name? Nurbanu, my sultana. Her voice was clear, determined.
Where are you from? From Venice, my sultana.
Venice, Hürrem thought. A noble city, cultured, powerful. Are you from a noble family?
Nurbanu hesitated for only a fraction of a second. I was, my sultana. Once. Honest, intelligent, not trying to hide or embellish her past.
How long have you been here?
3 years, my sultana.
3 years. Hürrem's eyes narrowed slightly.
Hürrem continued on her way, inspecting the rest of the line, but her mind remained on Nurbanu. Secrets were written all over that girl. After the inspection, Hürrem summoned Fatma Ana to her private chambers.
The chestnut-haired girl, Hürrem said, settling into silk cushions. Nurbanu, tell me about her.
Fatma Ana bowed. From Venice, my sultana. From the Venier family, a noble lineage. She was 12 when she arrived.
And in 3 years, she was never called.
No, my sultana. Not once.
Why? Fatma Ana chose her words carefully. Our Shehzadeh seems to be avoiding her, my sultana. We don't know why. She's talented, plays the oud, sings beautifully, now speaks Turkish fluently. She learned faster than anyone I've seen. Intelligent, then. Very intelligent, my sultana. And ambitious. She works late into the night, studying, constantly improving herself. Hürrem smiled slightly. Ambition, the secret ingredient. But there's something else, my sultana. Fatma Ana's voice dropped even lower. Her hands. What about her hands? Scars. Her hands are covered in cuts. It happened weeks ago, after our Shehzadeh returned from Istanbul and called for another concubine instead of her. Hürrem sat up straighter. She harmed herself?
Yes, my sultana. She broke a mirror and her hands bled. They say she was devastated. She had hoped he would call for her.
Passion, Hürrem thought. Not just ambition, passion. She loves him. Tell me, Hürrem said slowly, does my son show interest in her? Fatma Ana hesitated. He watches her, my sultana, from afar, at performances, in the harem, but he never approaches, as if he's afraid.
Afraid of a girl.
Perhaps afraid of caring. Fatma Ana's voice was soft. Our Shehzadeh isn't like his brothers. He feels deeply. And that girl, I think she makes him feel too much.
Hürrem stood and walked to the window. Outside, the garden bloomed with spring colors. She remembered being that girl, loving a man too afraid to reach for her.
Until I forced his hand, she thought. Until I made myself impossible to ignore.
Bring her to me, Hürrem said. Nurbanu, I want to speak with her, privately.
As she was led to Hürrem Sultan's private chambers,
If this story touched your heart, do not let it fade into silence. Like this tale, leave a gentle comment and subscribe to walk with me through the next chapters. Your likes and words keep these stories alive.
Nurbanu's heart raced wildly. What could the empire's most powerful woman want from her? Fear coiled in her stomach. Had she done something wrong? Would she be sent away? Punished?
The door opened. Nurbanu entered.
The room was magnificent. Silk cushions in jewel tones, carpets woven with gold thread, latticed windows filtering sunlight into geometric patterns. And in the center, seated like a queen on her throne, was Hürrem Sultan.
Come, Hürrem said. Her voice was softer now, almost kind. Sit.
Nurbanu sat on the indicated cushion, her back straight, hands clasped in her lap, trying to hide her trembling.
Hürrem studied her for a long moment. Then she said, "Show me your hands."
Nurbanu's breath caught. Of course she knows. Slowly, she extended her hands, palms up. The marks were there. Thin red lines cutting across both palms. Healed but permanent.
Hürrem took Nurbanu's hands in her own, examining the scars closely. How did this happen?
An accident, my sultana, Nurbanu whispered.
What kind of accident? I was very upset. Something fell, and when I tried to pick it up,
Hürrem's grip tightened slightly. These marks don't look like a simple accident. They look deliberate. She released Nurbanu's hands and lifted the girl's chin, forcing their eyes to meet. Raise your head and look into my eyes. Tell me the truth. You seem like an intelligent girl, but neither lying nor these scars are what an intelligent girl would do.
I hope she is intelligent, Hürrem thought. But perhaps she's just passionate and a bit mad.
Nurbanu's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't lie. Not to this woman. Not to Hürrem Sultan.
Our Shehzade is very precious, my Sultana, she began, her voice breaking. And I have strong feelings for him, perhaps like everyone. But I crossed a line. I couldn't control myself.
The words began pouring out. I've been here for 3 years. I was young. I grew up. I learned everything. I made myself worthy of him. Then, before he went to Istanbul, in the library, we had a moment. A small moment of closeness. Hürrem's eyebrow rose. What kind of closeness?
Nurbanu's cheeks flushed. He looked at me, really looked at me. For the first time, I felt seen. He said kind words that touched my heart. We were close.
I understand. Enough. Hürrem gestured with her hand. What happened next? Your hands? Nurbanu's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. When he returned, my sultana, I hoped that perhaps he would call for me once, just once, to ease this longing. But when he called for another concubine instead, her voice broke. My world went dark. I don't even remember what I did. Years of accumulated grief just exploded.
Forgive me, my Sultana.
It was madness, but I think the pain accumulated over so many years just came out all at once.
Hürrem's face hardened. You belong to this dynasty. Harming yourself is absolutely forbidden. You belong to the Sultan, to the Ottoman family. Do you understand?
Yes, my Sultana, Nurbanu whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks.
What you did is a crime, but I forgive you this time, because I know why you did it.
Nurbanu looked up in astonishment.
Hürrem stood and walked to the window. Sunlight caught her red gold hair, making it shimmer like molten copper. She spoke without turning.
You did this because there's a spark of ambition within you. You desire not just Selim, but power. You dream of being more. You're clearly intelligent and passionate. You have another advantage. You're quite beautiful. Nurbanu's heart raced. She called me intelligent. She called me beautiful.
Hürrem turned, her eyes sharp. But if foolishness covers your beauty, you'll fade like the others before you. Just as Mahidevran faded in my time, Hürrem came and her brief reign ended.
She moved even closer. The whole world speaks of Sultan Suleiman's love for me. You must have heard the stories. I am an eternal gift to this dynasty, but it came with prices.
Nurbanu listened, mesmerized, as Hürrem continued.
If you want not just a sip of this power, but to be drenched in its wine, you'll pay prices, Nurbanu. Prices far greater than these marks on your hands.
The room seemed to glow. Nurbanu looked at Hürrem and in that moment truly saw her.
In her 40s, 6 children, decades in the palace, yet she radiated with an almost supernatural beauty. Her skin was luminous, her eyes sparkled, her bearing was that of a queen. This was perhaps the maximum beauty a human could achieve.
From slavery to sovereignty, Nurbanu thought. What battles she must have fought. What rivals she must have destroyed. And still so radiant. Perhaps because of those she destroyed.
Sunlight streaming through the latticed window caught Hürrem's red gold hair, creating a halo effect. For a moment, she looked like a goddess, like a flame given human form.
So I ask you, Nurbanu, Hürrem's voice interrupted her thoughts. What do you want? To fade away, or to reach for eternity, no matter the price?
Nurbanu came back to herself. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin. Her voice came out determined, clear.
I'm ready to pay whatever price is necessary, my Sultana.
Hürrem smiled. It was a smile of satisfaction and recognition, the smile of a master finding a worthy apprentice.
Then from this moment forward, Hürrem said, her voice taking on a commanding tone, you will obey me without question. You will help me build Selim's path to the throne. You will report everything to me, every word, every glance, every movement in this palace. You will help me control him.
Nurbanu's pulse quickened.
Was this really happening?
In return, Hürrem continued, moving closer. I will guarantee your permanent position with Selim.
The words hung in the air like gold coins falling on marble.
Permanence, not just one night, not just being a favorite. Permanence.
Nurbanu felt shock and joy pass through her in equal measure.
Hürrem Sultan, the empire's most powerful woman, had come to Manisa, noticed her, and was now offering what she'd dreamed of for 3 years. But could she trust this? Was this real, or was it a test?
As if reading her thoughts, Hürrem said, "I don't make empty promises, nor do I listen to them. When I say something, it happens. This is how I survived. This is how I won."
Nurbanu didn't hesitate. "Yes, my Sultana. For Shehzade Selim's love, I'm ready to do anything."
Hürrem extended her hand. Nurbanu took it, their fingers interlaced. 2 women, 2 slaves, 2 warriors. One had already conquered an empire, the other was just beginning.
"Then the game begins," Hürrem said, "and this time we will win." As Nurbanu left the room, her heart beat with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Her hands no longer hurt. The scars were no longer a source of shame. Now they were proof that she had suffered, survived, and was ready for more. Behind her, Hürrem stood at the window, watching the girl walk away.
She's like me, Hürrem thought. Hungry, desperate, ready to bleed for what she wants. Selim doesn't know it yet, but I've chosen his future and hers.
A smile played on her lips. The pieces had been set in motion. The game had begun.
And Hürrem Sultan always won.
That evening, Hürrem Sultan came to her son's private chambers. The guards waiting at the door immediately bowed. When she entered, Selim was standing by the window, a wine goblet in his hand.
Seeing his mother, he turned and stumbled slightly, perhaps from the wine, perhaps from this unexpected visit. "Mother," he said, setting the goblet on the table, "at this hour, is something wrong?"
Hürrem walked toward her son. Her eyes were sharp, her expression determined. "Yes, Selim, something is wrong, and we're going to solve this problem now."
Selim felt an inner apprehension. When his mother spoke in this tone, there was no escape. "What is it?"
Nurbanu.
This single word froze Selim. His heart began to race. The wine's effect vanished instantly. What do you mean?"
Exactly what you heard. Nurbanu, the Venetian concubine in your harem. We're going to talk about that girl.
Selim's reaction was defensive, almost aggressive. He turned back, looking at his mother with harsh eyes. His voice rose.
"How do you know about this?"
Hürrem raised her eyebrows. There was cold amusement in her voice. "What is there that I shouldn't know, Selim? I am your mother. If a bird flies in this palace, I know about it. I even know the count of breaths of a girl in the harem."
Selim was thoroughly tense now. With the courage from the wine, he stepped forward, his voice becoming decisive. "Mother, don't interfere with my choices. This is my life, my harem, my decisions." Lightning flashed in Hürrem's eyes. The atmosphere of the room changed. It grew heavy, filled with danger. Her voice lowered, but became even more powerful, each word like a threat.
"Your choices?"
She walked towards Selim, each step measured, deliberate, until she stood before her son. She pointed her finger at his chest.
You have no choices, Selim. This capital has a future. Since I came into being, I have determined this future.
Her voice hardened even more. Years of pain,
struggle, and victory, all echoing in those words. I've paid great prices. I've spilled blood. I've shed tears. I've destroyed my enemies. Every night as I slept, I wondered which day my head would be cut off. Now has it come down to your will?
Selim stepped back. Before his mother's power, her authority, he always felt like a small child. The courage the wine had given him had evaporated like steam.
Hürrem continued, her voice now like a sharp blade.
You will do as I say. Understood?
Selim couldn't answer. He only looked. When his mother got like this, opposing her was suicide. Hürrem stepped back, folding her arms. Her voice was calmer now, but still authoritative.
Now, she said, tell me about this Nurbanu matter. What is this girl?
Selim took a deep breath. He averted his eyes, looking at the window. When he began to speak, his voice was low and uncertain. Defensive, yet there was a softness, an involuntary softness.
Just one of the girls in the harem, he began, still not looking into his mother's eyes. A talented girl. She has dance, she has voice.
He paused. Hürrem waited, silently. She knew that silence was sometimes the best weapon. She came from a noble family, Selim continued, though where she came from no longer matters. Then his voice changed, softened. An admiration emerged within, an admiration he tried to suppress but couldn't hide. But even upon her arrival, there was a nobility she couldn't hide. Despite her young age, clearly in Venice, she was very well raised up to that age, educated, polite, but not fragile, gentle, but not weak. Hürrem was listening. That tremor in her son's voice, that involuntary softening, she knew these signs. She too once spoke of Suleiman the same way. Selim continued, now going even deeper. Words seemed to pour from his mouth. And also, she has a genetically different beauty. He stopped, swallowed, then added, rare. Perhaps such beauty comes once in a century. He looked at his mother. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Selim said words he had never planned to say.
Like you. Hürrem's face softened, just for a moment, for a breath. Then it hardened again. But that moment had been enough. Selim had seen a sparkle in his mother's eyes.
But he immediately collected himself, acting as if he hadn't said those words. He went on the defensive. But, he said, his voice now harder, in my eyes, she's still a little girl, just a child. She needs time. Hürrem's voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. Her time or yours? Selim turned, confused. What does that mean? Who needs time? Her to grow, to mature, or you to dare to see that girl as a woman?
Selim averted his eyes. His mother's sharpness always found its target. He muttered,
Of course her. She needs to grow, to change. I don't know, maybe she's not to my taste. I told you, she's still a child. A lie, she thought. He's lying even to himself. I know him too well. He's just afraid. Hürrem approached, taking her son's shoulders. She looked into his eyes. What I saw up close today was a fresh young woman, Selim. Neither a child nor fully a woman. A girl practically glowing, radiant. Her passionate eyes have lights in them, life, fire. She paused,
letting the effect settle. Then added,
Right now, which girl in your harem has such a sparkle? Tell me, in which concubine have you seen this fire?
Selim couldn't answer because he knew there was none. Only Nurbanu had that light.
Hürrem continued.
This girl isn't just another beauty, Selim. She's combined her beauty with her mind. In 3 years, she's learned Turkish fluently. Music, literature, dance. She's improved herself in everything. Do you know why? Because she has a purpose.
She moved even closer to Selim, whispered.
And clearly, she has feelings to devote herself to you, Selim.
Selim turned to his mother in shock. His eyes widened. What does that mean? Hürrem smiled dismissively. Of course, everyone harbors feelings for a Sherzadeh, but this is different. You understand it's different too.
Selim opened his mouth, but Hürrem continued, her voice now harsh.
Don't act like you don't know, Selim. The girl's hands are shattered. You didn't know about this either?
This time, Selim looked at his mother with even greater shock. His color drained. What do you mean? What happened to her hands?
Her hands? What happened to Nurbanu's hands? His heart began to race wildly.
Hürrem looked at him coldly. You'll see for yourself. Ask the rest yourself. Selim's mind was in chaos. Nurbanu, her hands. What had happened? What had she done?
But first, Hürrem said, her voice now in a commanding tone, here's what I have to say to you.
She pointed her finger at her son's chest again.
You will get yourself together. Reduce your drinking. If you won't reduce it, at least hide it. You are a candidate for Sultan, Selim, not a tavern boy.
Selim bowed his head. When spoken to this harshly, he couldn't respond.
Hürrem continued, While I'm dealing with 1,000 troubles there, while Mahidevran prepares her son for the Sultanate, you can't be chasing pleasures here. You will build a proper life, a proper family.
She paused, looked at Selim. Her voice softened, but remained firm.
And this girl, this Nurbanu, is perfectly suited for this.
Selim raised his head, looked at his mother.
Besides, Hürrem added, smiling, you haven't even called her to your bed once yet. This is much better.
Better? Selim was trying to understand.
Keep your excitement at its peak. Be curious. The first night will be much more special this way. There was a light in Hürrem's eyes. This Nurbanu, she can be your Haseki. She is suitable to be your wife.
Haseki, your wife. These words echoed in Selim's brain. He understood. His mother hadn't just decided on one night. She was thinking of something permanent.
At that moment, only one thing was spinning in Selim's head. Nurbanu's hands. What had his mother said? Shattered? Why? How? What had happened to her?
And his mother had said, she has feelings for you. She loves you.
Was this possible? That little girl? That green-eyed, auburn-haired girl with the noble gaze? Did she love him? Hürrem read her son's face. She smiled. Go, she said. Call for her. See for yourself. Ask yourself. Then she headed for the door. But before leaving, she turned.
And Selim, be smart this time. Don't lose this girl.
She left. The door closed.
Selim was left alone, with his thoughts, his confusion, and a curiosity slowly growing inside him.
Nurbanu's hands. She loves you. Suitable to be your wife.
It had all happened so fast. An hour ago, he was just drinking wine. Now everything had changed.
He walked to the door, opened it, called for Mahmud Aga waiting outside.
Mahmud Aga, he said, his voice trembling. Quickly, bring Nurbanu from the harem, immediately.
Mahmud Aga was surprised but didn't show it. He only bowed. As you command, my Sheikhzadeh. Selim closed the door, returned to the room. His heart was beating wildly.
Nurbanu was sitting in her room. She and Layla were talking. Only 2 hours had passed since her meeting with the Valide Sultan. She was still in shock.
Hürrem Sultan's offer, the alliance, permanent position.
The door burst open. Mahmud Aga entered, breathless.
Nurbanu Hatun, he said, his voice urgent. Our Shehzadeh is calling for you, immediately.
Nurbanu's world spun. What? Selim? Calling? Now?
I'm not ready, she stammered. My clothes, my hair.
Now, Hatun, the Sheikhzadeh, is waiting.
Layla looked at Nurbanu, her eyes wide.
Go, she whispered. Go now. This must be the Valide Sultan's doing.
Nurbanu stood. Her hands were trembling. She wore a simple green kaftan. Her hair was pulled into a simple braid. No makeup.
But there was no time. Mahmud Aga was waiting.
As they walked through the corridors, Nurbanu's heart beat so fast she couldn't breathe.
Selim, after 3 years, finally, he had called for her. But why now? Why so sudden?
Hürrem Sultan. Of course, his mother must have talked to him.
When they reached the door to Selim's chamber, Mahmud Aga gently opened the door.
Please enter, Hatun. Nurbanu entered. The door closed behind her.
The room was lit by candlelight. By the window, his back turned, Selim stood.
He slowly turned and saw Nurbanu. 3 years, 3 long years since he'd last seen her. So much had changed.
That little girl was gone. Standing before him was a breathtakingly beautiful young woman. The green kaftan gently hugged the lines of her body. Her chestnut hair fell past her shoulders, and those eyes, those hazel green eyes, now sparkled with golden glimmers in the candlelight. Selim swallowed, couldn't speak. Nurbanu bowed. My Shehzadeh, she said softly. Her voice trembled.
Rise, Selim said. His voice was hoarse. Please.
Nurbanu straightened. Her hands were clasped in front of her. Selim's gaze slid to those hands.
And he saw thin red lines, marks cutting across both palms, healed but permanent. His heart clenched, his breath caught.
Your hands, he whispered.
Nurbanu immediately hid her hands behind her back, bowed her head, her cheeks flushed with shame.
Show me, Selim said, approaching. His voice was soft but firm. Please. Nurbanu hesitated, then slowly extended her hands forward.
Selim gently took them. His fingers traced over those marks. Each one told a story of pain.
How did this happen? He asked, his voice cracking.
Nurbanu's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't answer.
Selim raised his head, looked at her. Their eyes met.
And in that moment, in that silent gaze, everything was said.
Nurbanu's hands were still in Selim's hands. Those thin red lines, those marks of pain. Selim's fingers were gently passing over them.
I don't feel them anymore, my Shehzade, Nurbanu said, her voice a whisper. She fixed her eyes on Selim's eyes. Believe me, they hurt less than the wound you opened in my heart.
Selim looked into Nurbanu's eyes as if hearing these words, this confession, for the first time.
This time, in her eyes was a young woman who no longer hesitated to hide her feelings, whose eyes sparkled like fires. Her hazel green eyes scattered halos, issuing 1,000 invitations to love. Golden sparkles danced in those eyes in the candlelight.
How beautiful, Selim thought. How beautiful and how brave. She's no longer hiding, no longer ashamed. She's showing me her feelings.
Nurbanu, he said, his voice a bit husky. What are you saying? What wound? He was asking, but he actually knew the answer. As if asking a question he nearly knew.
With the courage she'd taken from Hürrem Sultan, Nurbanu had become even bolder. From a small kitten, she was practically transforming into a lioness with the answers she gave. Each word was braver, more open, more real.
Selim was both surrendering and being affected by this audacity. Who was this girl? Where was this courage coming from?
Nurbanu answered. Words now poured from her lips without stopping.
My Shehzade, you told me to wait. When your father fell ill, you said, wait. In the library, you looked into my eyes and left me half-finished, with hopes.
Her voice trembled, but was determined. She continued.
And I waited for days. Every day, thinking of the minutes spent with you in the library, I waited with hope, remembering those moments in my mind over and over, reliving them. I waited.
She was opening up more and more. I imagined your warmth for days. She was about to continue, but suddenly stopped. Am I saying too much, too openly? She thought. Just as she was about to speak with passion, she suddenly composed herself.
Her accent slipped at times. Words lingered a bit longer on her lips. From excitement, from passion, from 3 years of longing.
Selim was in astonishment at the words coming from this girl's lips. She spoke in ornate language, speaking Turkish now one way, now another. Perhaps this mastery came easily when learned at an early age.
Then he thought of himself. He knew 6 languages. He'd grown up speaking all 6 like native tongues. But this was unique to Selim. He was the one who wrote poetry. Poet Selim. With alcohol's effect, melancholy was his companion. Perhaps not even a drop of wine had touched this girl's lips. To think that someone else would speak poetry in his own language, his mind couldn't quite grasp it. Perhaps all the words were ordinary, but Selim was enchanted.
Nurbanu's increasingly open manner, adult, audacious, displaying all her courage, was driving him out of his mind. Finally, he too was on the verge of confessing to himself. No concubine, not in hundreds of moments with dozens of concubines, gave Selim as much pleasure as a single sentence from this girl.
Nurbanu fell silent now, looked at the ground, then slowly added, her voice almost breaking.
Then you came back,
and called someone else. At least for the sake of that day, if you had looked at my face once.
Selim now asked with even greater astonishment, "And then you cut your hands?"
Well, something fell from my hand. While picking it up, Nurbanu averted her eyes.
Selim no longer needed further answers. Was this girl also a bit mad, passionate, ambitious? Seeing the cuts on her hands, Selim's heart ached once more. However mad she might be, those delicate hands had waited for him in pain for days. Selim now held her hands with great remorse, looked into her eyes.
I'm sorry, Nurbanu. I didn't think I'd hurt you. Perhaps I ran away. I don't know.
Now it was Nurbanu's turn to be surprised. From what, my Shehzade? Selim could no longer resist. The poet within him had awakened. Words had lined up in his mind. Looking into Nurbanu's eyes, he whispered like a poem.
From your beauty I fled, fearing to go mad. I was afraid to be bound, refusing to give my heart to you. But in the end, my blood runs a bit mad. I am poet Selim, free-spirited, never captive. But from you, I can no longer escape. In any way, I've realized. My heart is already with you. Even if I run, I'm caught.
Nurbanu had been told that Selim had a poetic soul. She'd even heard at length from the concubines in the harem, but she never thought these few sentences directed at her would be more effective than all of them.
She was affected by Selim once more, his hair like pale yellow silk taken from his mother. But perhaps he'd also taken this poetic soul from his father, the most exalted Sultan Suleiman Khan, perhaps from his grandfather Yavuz. Genetic or not, but what beautiful, ornate sentences they were.
Nurbanu wanted to go write them in her notebook to remember those words forever.
Selim now moved a bit closer. He began touching Nurbanu's hands, her hair. These were tender, delicate touches. He wanted to enfold, to wrap this delicate young woman he'd hurt repeatedly with all his love.
Nurbanu was breathing in short gasps. For the first time in her life, someone was touching her like this, and it was royalty itself. The Shehzade, perhaps the one who would sit on the Sultan's throne in the future, was Selim.
And just an hour ago, she'd received the salvation offer of her life from the great Hürrem Sultan herself. Had fate decided to smile upon her now? If so, perhaps the torments she'd endured had come to an end.
Selim now slowly moved his hands toward Nurbanu's face. He was running his fingers over her eyelashes, her lips, as if redrawing Nurbanu's face with his hands, as if wanting to memorize every line, every detail.
Under these touches, Nurbanu would lower her eyes, suddenly smile, then raise her eyes again and cast coquettish glances at Selim.
Selim now slowly moved his hands toward Nurbanu's waist. Nurbanu had also wrapped her arms around Selim's neck. Again, the library moment was about to be relived. If things went a bit further, Nurbanu didn't know what she would do. Besides, those special preparations and all, none of it had been done. She'd found herself here as she'd left the harem. Moreover, compared to the moments she'd waited for days adorning herself, she could even be considered unkempt right now.
What she didn't know was that in Selim's eyes, she was practically angelic in her beauty.
Nurbanu thought to herself,
Well, best to leave it to him. The Shahzadeh knows what should happen. Do I have a say?
Suddenly, this feeling gripped her heart. Yes, she had no say in anything. She was obliged to say yes to everything. She was a captive, a slave, an ornate, educated slave. She was the property of the Ottoman dynasty. True.
But was Hürrem Sultan like that? How dominant she was, how commanding. She practically governed the entire dynasty. If anyone said men and women were equal, no one would question it twice.
In the great dynasty, in the presence of the great sultan, Hürrem Sultan's name echoed from everyone. Such powerful energy, such powerful sovereignty.
For a very brief moment, she thought to herself, could I be like that too?
With Selim suddenly pulling her to him and pressing his lips to hers, all thoughts flew away.
He was kissing both gently, without hurting, and gradually increasing the fire. For Nurbanu, this was the only part she knew, and even that only from what she'd experienced before in the library.
She was responding to those kisses with equal fervor. Now she was making small moans. With each of these moans, Selim's world shook a few more times, shook with excitement.
This was nothing like the kisses he tasted every night. This was so warm, so hot. It was different. His mind and body were practically merging as Nurbanu kissed him.
They kissed like this for a long time. Neither was tiring. Nurbanu was practically making up for years of longing. With each kiss, Selim was astonished at the feelings this girl awakened in him.
Then, a moment came. Selim stopped. Nurbanu thought, oh no, I exaggerated too much. Perhaps I couldn't stop myself, Nurbanu. Should it have been this obvious? She said to herself. After all, it was the first time a Shahzadeh was kissing her. What was she supposed to do? Selim suddenly stopped and said, this won't do. Nurbanu looked in confusion. What won't do? What happened again, my Shahzadeh? Selim pulled back, looked at her. There was determination in his eyes. It won't do, he said again. We will marry, and you will be my wife. I will touch you properly, without sin. Hürrem's words were like an approval in his mind. Something had been completed in his head. Nurbanu had been given clearance for Selim, and he was no longer afraid. His mother had approved. The doubts in his head had ended. Nurbanu would erase the rest anyway.
Nurbanu was now frozen in a final wave of astonishment. Without even entering the halavet once, am I directly becoming the Shahzadeh's wife? This is even more than I expected. Or perhaps it was the only thing she'd been waiting for years, the only thing she felt and knew deep inside. Now it was becoming real.
Perhaps the end had come to the prices she'd paid while approaching her dreams. Perhaps now it was her turn.
Selim thus hastily collected and composed himself. You go now, Nurbanu, he said. Return to the harem. Tomorrow evening, we have our wedding. Nurbanu was now experiencing a moment even happier than the previous ones. Perhaps a victory, perhaps an exaltation. She wanted to scream at the top of her lungs, to walk through the entire palace screaming, to announce to everyone, to tell them she would be Shehzadeh Selim's wedded wife.
On her face, roses, violets, all the flowers in the Ottoman garden were blooming.
Instead, she simply said,
"Of course, my Shehzade, as you see fit," and withdrew.
Swaying gracefully, her skirts sweeping the floor, she left the room. Selim was left staring at the elegance, the coquettish walk of that beauty he'd just held in his arms. He breathed in the scent she'd left in the air, rose, jasmine, and her own unique fragrance.
Selim too had relaxed a bit more. He'd made his decision. Finally.
Tomorrow evening, Nurbanu would be his, through the halal way, through marriage, as his wife. And this time no one could separate them.
In the next episode,
Will Shehzade Selim and Nurbanu truly marry?
What will happen at the wedding ceremony? How will Mahidevran and the other concubines receive this news? And most importantly, what will their first night be like?
Some loves begin with a kiss, some begin with a poem, but the strongest loves become eternal with a marriage.
If you want the story to continue, don't forget to write that you want the continuation at the end of the story.
To be continued.